Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Oh, it's happened again. Another sex scandal in the fabulous hothouse that is the world of classical music. The smarmy underside of our arts establishment rears its sweaty head and armpit and other areas. Anyway, in this case, it's François-Xavier Roth, he of the period instrument orchestra Les Siècles and other ensembles. You know, the problem with these things when they happen is that people put their eggs in one basket. This is why classical music artists should be forbidden from holding more than one position at the same time, because it spreads immediately. So in this case, let's see, what was Roth doing with himself? I have a little list here. He is, let's see, principal guest conductor of the London Symphony Orchestra, music director of Cologne's Gürzenich Orchestra and Opera, and he is the music director to be from 2025 of the SWR Symphony Orchestra, where he is taking over from good old Theodor Korensis, another winner. I guess that didn't go too well. Who knows what happened there with him? Anyway, people have their relationships, and it's a problem. It's really a problem. Now, what makes this particular case interesting is that he doesn't deny doing what he did. This whole business came to light because of a French investigative magazine. What's it called? It's called something like Le Canard Enchaîné, I think, or something like that. Rather interesting magazine here. Yes, Le Canard Enchaîné, which did some really serious work coming up with all of these allegations. And like I said, he doesn't deny sending, obscene phone calls and text messages to various people at various times. So that's a done deal already. As a result of this, he has voluntarily canceled himself with the following statement. This is the one he sent to his colleagues in Cologne. He wrote, quote, "Due to the release of a news article pointing out that I have sent inappropriate text messages to musicians in the past, the orchestras I lead will be extensively investigating the behavior cited and collecting information on the allegations. I have decided to stop conducting the Gürzenich Orchestra temporarily in order to permit a peaceful investigation of these matters. I apologize to anyone I may have offended." Well, okay. I mean, that's, an effort at damage control, however pathetic. But, the real issue here is not that he did those things. The issue is what happened after he did those things. How did he treat the people who were the recipients of those things? And what atmosphere did he create of lack of safety in the workplace for the objects of his desire? Because let's face it, most people are creeps. And if they don't get what they want, especially if they're narcissistic, self-regarding artists, they don't react terribly maturely and well. I've told this story before, but I remember, Christa Ludwig once told me that when she was doing The Ring or something with Schulte, he wanted her, and he suggested that they go to a back room or something for a little tryst, and she just told him to flip off. She said, "No way, get lost." And he did. But he was involved in a huge opera production. There was nothing he could really do to penalize her. Whereas, a conductor of an orchestra in Cologne or Les Siècles can really punish somebody who doesn't do what they want them to do. And that's really the problem. It's not about the smarminess of the text. It's about the use and abuse of power at the highest level. And the reaction of Les Siècles was actually kind of interesting. I want to share it with you here. It's kind of fascinates me because it really gets to the heart of the matter. Let's see, who's this guy? Enrique Terrain told Musique France, He's their managing director. It's a cyclone that is coming before us. Les Siècles is not just François-Xavier Roth. It is 70 musicians and 7 administrative employees. Our priority is to maintain employment and preserve the structure. Yes, exactly. You see, that's the issue. That's why people put up with this crap, because they want to be employed and they want to have, a regularly constituted job to go to. And that, preserving that, is the top priority, not the complaints of people who may be abused. And that's really a sad thing. I mean, if I were the head of Les Siècles, I would have said, our priority is to ensure that our musicians have a rewarding and safe environment and that we preserve that. And if that means dumping François-Xavier Roth, then that's what you have to do. The problem is that in the world of classical music, these people are elevated to ridiculous heights, to ridiculous positions of power. They think they can get away with anything. And here's the real, tachlis, the real nugget at the bottom of it. Everybody knows. For Roth to admit that he actually did this was a big deal in the world of arts. People usually deny everything. It's deny, 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 right? But everybody knows that the guy's a pig. People are pigs, generally. People in power are pigs. Male, female, it makes no difference. Power gets abused. And it gets abused sexually, and it gets abused in the arts, and it happens all the time. Everyone knew about James Levine. Everybody. For decades, nothing was done. He was in a position of power because as long as the world at large didn't know, as long as formal complaints weren't filed, it was tolerated. Or if you take the Crystal Ludwig example, in most cases, when somebody, gets has a pass made at them by somebody else, they decline and life goes on because there are plenty of fish in the sea. It's not as if these sexual predators are lacking for choice. Everybody wants a job. There's always somebody who's going to, step down to the plate, if you want to say step up to the plate and allow themselves to be used in such a way, whether for career advancement or some sort of preferential treatment. That's the way this business operates. Acting is the same. Look at what's his name, Weinstein and all that business. That's the way it operates. And most of the time, it's at a lower level of obnoxiousness. And so people put up with it. I mean, there's a casual sense of putting up with a certain amount. And I don't have any problem with that. I have to be honest with you. I mean, because that's how it's always worked. It's not always right, but generally speaking, it doesn't rise to the level of abuse. It can, but everybody knew that this was going on with Roth in all of his positions, and it was tolerated. Should it be tolerated? Well, when it gets to the level of public outcry, people making formal complaints, then it should not be tolerated. Obviously, it should not be. If it's not the kind of thing, if, people in orchestras fool around, they sleep around, orchestras go on tour, stuff happens. There's all kinds of shenanigans going on that are at the lower level of normal personal interactions. I mean, I'm not trying to make a black and white, Schadenfreude, ha, Roth, we gotcha sort of thing. It's not about that. But it's about the degree to which it's tolerated. And because it's not a black and white issue, it's a very difficult problem to deal with. Because obviously the degree to which it's tolerated depends on the degree to which people feel offended and are inclined to report their grievances. But the fact that the guy at Les Siècles said, well, we're just trying to stay employed. Well, that's a pretty low level, let's put it that way, of a pretty high level of tolerance for the kind of goings on that, have been reported coming from Mr. Roth. And everybody knows. And the fact that they know about it at Les Siècles and in Cologne and probably everywhere else he's ever worked suggests that here's a guy who's a real predator. It's one thing to run into somebody occasionally. If you have a job and you see somebody and you think there's an opportunity and you try and take advantage of it, and then you beg off. Okay, that's all right. It happens. But for it to be an endemic situation, all of the artistic organizations at which you work, well, that's something else entirely. But these people think that they can get and do whatever they want because the industry teaches that artists are unique figures to be worshipped and tolerated, whose mercurial and sometimes psychopathic behavior is simply to be accepted because that's the artist mentality. Well, no. I mean, that kind of crap does not have to be tolerated and should not be tolerated. And we're going to see what the fallout from this exciting situation will be. I will all be tracking it, then we'll all see what happens. But it's just another example of how the arts industry really has no capacity to deal with this kind of thing. They really don't. I mean, they've appointed an independent attorney to investigate the allegations. Well, what is there to investigate? We know that he did it. He says that he did it. And the fallout will be what it is. One thing is for sure, you can understand, given Mr. Roth's evident predilections, and I'm sure within the industry, the widespread knowledge thereof, what his, job prospects are going to be in future. That's one thing. And we also can understand how Klaus Mekele managed to get all these positions because, as we all know, this can't happen, this sort of thing with him, because, at least as far as his recordings are concerned, he has no genitalia. So there's no problem. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Stay tuned for future developments.